Hello and welcome to Verbal to Visual Video. I'm your host Doug Neill, and today I would like to share my top 5 tips for new sketchnoters. The 5 most important things to keep in mind when you're getting started with visual note taking that might also be good for more experienced sketchnoters as well. So let's jump right into it. My first tip, start with affordable and accessible materials. Don't worry about finding the best pen or the perfect notebook. You will have plenty of opportunities to experiment with different materials in the future. For now, just use what you have on hand or go get something that is accessible and affordable. Here are my 3 favorite materials to use for a variety of visual note-taking tasks. The first is index cards. I like the 3x5 inch size because it's small enough to make sure that you are concise about how you express an idea. And I love how modular they are because you can move them around, which can help you to see how a set of ideas are related to each other. And I even like how disposable they are because if I mess up on one index card or while doing one, I think of a better way to express that idea, I can just toss that first draft into the recycling bin. And I know that I'm only wasting a couple of cents, but that it was worth it to get to this next step of the idea. I like to use legal pads as well for similar reasons, because 1, they're cheap and easy to find, and even the ability to quickly rip out a page and start a new one is very appealing to me. I tend to use legal pads with their lined pages if I know that I'm going to primarily be using text, if I'm working on the rough draft of a blog post or I'm just getting bullet pointed lists down. That's what I tend to use legal pads for, whereas with index cards, they usually have more of a visual component to them. But in both cases, I have no problem restarting an idea if I feel like that will benefit whatever process I am engaging in to get those ideas down. My third most frequently used material is a non-fancy sketchbook that has completely blank pages. I like Strathmore's 9x12 inch notebook because for under $10, you can get 100 pages. And that's actually the paper that I use right now that you're seeing me draw on in this video. And so far, at least, those 3 materials are serving me really well. I use each of them in different ways, and I never have to worry about running out of money or not being able to get to them whenever I need to replenish those materials. Tip number 2 for new sketchnoters, set up constraints. Have some sort of plan in mind going into a visual note-taking session for how you are going to use text, how you are going to lay out your ideas, what sort of imagery you are going to use, and how you are going to use color. And that's not to suggest that you have to incorporate all of those elements into any given note-taking session, but I think it's worth thinking about which of those elements you're going to use and how you are going to use them. And it'll take a bit of experimentation, but over time you'll find out for yourself how many constraints you need for any particular note-taking task and what those specific constraints are for you that help you to get the most out of that note-taking session. And what those constraints do is they help you to approach the blank page not with fear and total openness, but with some sort of a plan for how you're going to fill that page. Moving on to that stage when you actually do start to get ideas down onto the page, my third tip is this. While you are sketchnoting, use intent as a filter. What I mean by that is make sure you know what you want to get out of that particular note-taking session and use that specific intent to decide which of the many ideas that are coming in, which of those you actually want to get down onto the page. Your goal is probably not to get every single idea down, but only the ones that are most important for you in that particular situation. And in a way, this idea of using intent as a filter is another constraint, but instead of being a constraint on the way you put ideas down onto the page, it's a constraint surrounding what ideas are even worth getting down in the first place. Tip number 4, don't be precious about how your notes look. I get it, this is a visual thing that has a bit of an artistic component to it. But it's not about creating a pretty picture. It's about getting ideas out of your head and onto the page. So stop worrying so much about how they look and worry about what comes next, which leads to tip number 5. Don't let the image be the end of it. The whole point of putting this extra effort and energy into capturing ideas in some sort of a visual way is so that you can take those ideas and then do something with them. Focus on that. Focus on the action that comes next, not on simply how the ideas look. So these are my top 5 tips for sketchnoters. Start with affordable and accessible materials. Set up constraints for yourself. Use intent as a filter while you're taking notes. Don't be so precious about how they look, and don't let the image be the end of it. Do you have other tips that I should add to this list? If so, let me know with a comment below, and make sure to also sign up for the Verbal to Visual newsletter so that you can get new videos like these sent directly to your inbox every week. Keep these 5 ideas in mind the next time you sit down to take some visual notes. I hope that they help you. Good luck, and I will talk to you next week. Until then.